I have so much of data, I have so much of noise, but it's not really getting useful. I'm not able to isolate what is priority, what is not priority, what is critical, which has a customer impact or a revenue impact, and what is not. And how do I kind of, make this more intelligent and useful and actionable?
Hello and welcome to another special episode of the Boss's Code. Cloud platforms host a lot of services, and many applications are now being built and cloud natively deployed on these large servers that are often called hyperscalers, built by Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. So, how do organizations monitor the products or their services that are being hosted on these clouds? How do they observe how they're performing? So that's the layer that is being built by companies that are involved in observability market. And Datadog is one of those important players, or rather, it's leading the pack in the observability market. So today I have with me Namit D'Cruz, India enterprise leader for Datadog, and he leads the India enterprise market. So I'd like to take this time to explore how he's looking at the Indian region and also broadly give a perspective on how the observability market is moving and what are the changes that are happening to the kind of services that they provide to companies and developers. Namit, glad to have you on the podcast.
Thank you, John. Really, really excited to be here. Let me quickly get started with a quick introduction. I'm Namit. I lead the enterprise business at Datadog. Prior to that, I spent a long time in Microsoft, uh, leading the business with digital natives, and I had a bunch of different roles before that. So I think the first part of your question is something I really want to get to first, which is the market landscape in India when it comes to digitization, cloud adoption, and modernization. And we've really seen that firsthand. India has kind of had generational shifts over the past 10 odd years with the low cost of bandwidth, with the high cost of with the high penetration of mobile usage. We've seen massive disruption across industries, customers moving to cloud, customers modernizing on the cloud, and many traditional customers adopting a digital first kind of strategy. Now, that's been, phenomenal to see. Today, my charter with Datadog is to help customers actually realize all of those investments in and make it work, make all of these investments in digital work for their customers and help them drive customer experiences, better customer experiences through personalized services, better uptime, and so on.
Right. So I'd like to kind of take a step back to understand how Datadog in India at least is approaching this specific area or largely Asia. Infrastructure monitoring is the kind of bread and butter, if I want to use a very crude term for Datadog.
Yeah,
How
true.
different do you see the Indian and Asia market? I mean, do you see more of security coming into play, or people want more application monitoring than to kind of just monitor their overall infrastructure? So, what's your go-to strategy here in this market?
Yeah, so I want to again break that down into a couple of sections, and the first piece is the India market in observability and how is that different versus global. I think there might be a higher proliferation of open source in India, which is to be expected. But in the enterprise business, I think we are seeing similar trends globally. We are seeing this wave of as digitization kind of gained traction across industries, then people had to start doing monitoring. And the first solution to that was put in place as many monitoring tools across your landscape as possible, right? So that was the immediate knee-jerk answer. And then after that kind of wave kind of subsided, then companies were customers and companies were stuck with a lot of data, a lot of alerts, a lot of noise, and then came the second problem, which is what to do now. I have so much of data, I have so much of noise, but it's not really getting useful. I'm not able to isolate what is priority, what is not priority, what is critical, which has a customer impact or a revenue impact, and what is not. And how do I kind of make this more intelligent and useful and actionable, right? So that was the second journey. And I think a lot of customers are still going through that journey, both globally as well as in Datadog. So it's extremely relevant. I just want to kind of round that off by saying that in India, we are, of course, a price sensitive market. We are a cost sensitive market, but I also think that value always trumps cost every time, right? And it's very critical for us at Datadog to be able to prove value for what we're doing. So we actually have that baked into our process so that we evaluate whether the solution actually proves value, actually delivers, a significant ROI to our customer before we take it forward. Because it doesn't make sense if a customer tries to solve, $100,000 problem with a $500,000 solution, right? Just to give you an example, right? So it's important to get that value equation right before we proceed, and we're very cognizant of that.
So can you
So I
give a
go ahead.
little bit of a breakdown of that value? Like, for instance, how because you've been on the Indian market, you understand the psychology of the developer and the startup ecosystem here. So how do they seek value in these kind of services, and how do you build your products around it?
So the first piece is really observability is not, at least monitoring is not new. So what is this observability thing, and what is Datadog's position in this observability space? And there are many ways of looking at it, but I just want to summarize by talking about three main points. Right. The first thing is really the platform. And here we're talking about the breadth as well as the depth of the Datadog platform, spanning across not just observability, and some of the things that you spoke about are core observability, like infrastructure monitoring, application performance monitoring, log management, etc. Those are all core observability, but Datadog platform doesn't just stop there, right? So we cut across observability, security, cloud service management, and digital experience. And platform is unified under one single data platform, and that helps customers unify, simplify, and automate. Right. So that's I would say, the biggest value proposition. The second is, yes, a lot of people have existing investments. They've built their own stuff. They use a combination of open source, maybe managed open source in some cases. So why a commercial solution, right? And that really goes back to the pace of innovation. Just in the past 3 to 4 years, we've seen how AI has really changed the game across every industry. Everybody's talking AI. Everybody's talking about how to productionize AI. And all this goes to say is that, you know, whatever you use needs to be future proof, right? Because there's a lot of work that goes into deployment, configuration, customization. And once you're there, you're stuck. You can't change platforms every year, every 2 years. So everything that needs to be done when you're assessing a platform or a tool, it has to be future proof. And goes back to Datadog's commitment to R&D. We're currently committed to spend between 29 to 30% of our total revenues in R&D, and this is literally 3 to 5x of the other players in the space, right? So we are outspending, out developing, out innovating everybody else in the observability space when it comes to not just AI, but even when it comes to depth, deep capabilities on core observability, core security, and cloud service management. So that's number two. The last piece that I kind of want to also end with is that Datadog, and a lot of people may or may not know this, Datadog is actually the only observability company that's in the S&P 500 index. And we just went public in 2019. So I would say, quite a remarkable achievement to be included in that index, in within 6 years.
Yeah. And
So
of course, I
I think
think
that
Kathy Wood
we've,
from ARC is also quite bullish about Datadog, which actually shows
yeah,
that you're one of the future-looking companies. I mean, I wanted to. I mean, assuming that you finished your last point, my next
yeah.
question is largely on the AI aspect, right? So the tools that you're building at Datadog, how have they changed over the years in terms of how much you use AI to develop it? You spoke about the investment in R&D that you do, and then I'd also like you to kind of juxtapose that against this growing two-part conversation on, one group saying that there is AI doom coming, and then other group that keeps on talking about the AI boom. So if you could, speak about both those aspects, like what Datadog has been building with AI, and the next is how much of the AI boom or doom is real from what you're looking from your perspective in India.
Yeah. Yeah. So the second one is really tricky, right, John? But let me kind of give you, and this is more about my personal view. It's not necessarily a Datadog view, right? So the way I look at AI is very similar to what we saw with the internet era, right? So the internet again was not new. The internet has been around for a long time. It started getting commercialized and it started, really proliferating thanks to a bunch of convergent technologies. And the early iterations and the early applications or uses of the internet were very basic, right? If you remember, what were you and I using the internet for back in, the late 90s and early 2000s? We were basically using it for email, search, instant messaging, and some basic, maybe Wikipedia and some stuff like that, right? So that was what our vision of the internet was at that point in time. Today, if you look at how everything has transformed with internet and mobile and 5G, it's a totally different situation that none of us could have imagined back in the 90s, right? And we are going to go through exactly the same impact and probably even larger scale of transformation with AI, right? But it's going to take a few cycles to get there. It's going to take AI grounds up, built for AI applications and uses. It's going to take convergence of technologies, as I mentioned, network, devices, etc. And we're going to have a bunch of new use cases that we did not know existed today. The first part of the question is okay, great. AI is literally a buzzword that everybody is talking about, but how is Datadog using AI ourselves? And I think the quick answer to that is uh, we are so advanced that we built our own time series model, and on top of that time series model, we've launched virtual agents. We've launched, I would say, observability virtual agents across SRE, across developers, and across security analysts. Right. So these are really kind of like a co-pilot is I would say a parallel that you could kind of think of, where there's a high level of automation for your incident management and response side on the observability side, on your security flagging and mitigation on security, and of course on your development on actually code analysis and development across the SDLC cycle on the developer side, right? So that's how we're embracing AI. And again, observability in the AI world looks a little different from your typical observability because there are some additional, I would say, factors. One is security against hallucination, and as well as guardrails that you put in place for your AI workloads.
So I'm trying to understand the data ingestion part. You're getting more information because you also mentioned about the increase the telemetry data that's actually starting to come in. With so much coming, it's difficult for humans to really process. So you need that layer of AI, and at the same time, you do need those guardrails to kind of build a system that gives you more credible observability report. How do you
Correct.
create that sort of a red teaming effect, right? How do you say that the information that is coming out of these AI systems are credible enough for customers to take action on?
Yeah, so we have analysis to prevent hallucination, and you get a tree model where you can see what the decision tree for the AI was, and then you can have a human in the loop to approve a particular decision tree to get a specific output. But I think the larger question was the security aspect, right? A lot of customers are very hesitant to share uh, their data with folks who say that, hey, I'm powered by AI, and I have this LLM, and I use this API from OpenAI, and so and so forth, right? So what is that? How do we kind of make sure that customers' data is protected. I think that is a big part of this AI conversation. And the way we do it is we have a zero data retention agreement with all our model providers, meaning that all our customer data is never used to train a third-party AI models. So again, innovation, of course, but trust is really critical in this AI conversation, and this is one of the big things that we're doing.
Could you also speak about the general idea of how the Indian developers are looking at the development in AI space, right? What kind of products are being built, and what sort of trends are you seeing in the observability space? I'd also like you to keep say this in the backdrop of the recent AWS outage that happened, right? So, could this possibly make app developers or people who are actually hosting their services on cloud platform to think of multi-cloud, and also keep things to a certain extent on-prem, given that this could have a significant disruption. And of course, I think you mentioned about the security aspect, because a lot of our own payment applications, the UPI or banking applications that are going into the clouds, is still a lot of people are hesitant to put things out on the cloud. So how do these things are shaping up from what you see?
So the first piece is around, is cloud 100% strategy, or is cloud part of the digital strategy? And I think a lot of customers, a lot of folks, not just in India but worldwide, are moving multi-cloud and hybrid, and there is clear reasons for it. There is definitely no value in running a monolith, non-scaling workload on cloud, right? It's more expensive, right? So when you have certain types of workloads, they might actually be better off. You might be better off in a very stable, setup on-prem or with a colo. And then there are clearly workloads where you need scalability, you need modernization, you need innovation on a very regular basis, and which is not kind of dependent on hardware refresh cycles and underlying proprietary software that again gets upgraded every 3 to 4 years, right? So you can't afford those cycles. You need a much faster, continuous pace of innovation and modernization, typically consumer type workloads, customer experience where you want to deliver a personalized customer experience. You want hyper security workloads, powered by AI, etc. And those workloads are definitely more suited to the cloud, right? So I think customers have experimented with a lot of different models, and they've kind of a lot of the big uh, um, uh, industries, a lot of the big customers have a clear multi-cloud and hybrid strategy. All the folks that we're talking to are across more than one hyperscaler, and also have significant deployments on-prem or in a colo. So that's a clear trend that we see in India as well as globally. And I think that also means that you're kind of getting into a space where your environment is getting more complex, right? You now need to have a bunch of horizontal tools that are multi-cloud and are hybrid, that can support these requirements, right? So while at the one side you're kind of you're going at least on the infra storage side, you're going kind of, I would in a way, best of breed, fit for purpose. But everywhere else you also want to unify and simplify, and that again goes back to a platform that can actually support these kind of initiatives and keep pace with the high level of innovation and modernization that industries want to drive towards, right? So that's what I see in the industry happening today. And I can't really speak much about the AWS outage. I think the public statements and information is out there. Um, and we continue to support our partners as well as customers for these kind of events that happen.
Got it. Last point I wanted to touch upon is the data localization effort, and how does a company like Datadog look at the overall scenario where a lot of the nation states are looking to keep data within the borders? So, what sort of products are you building for this kind of, I would say, a new normal in geopolitics?
Think there's a multi-layered approach that we are taking. The first solve is the technical capabilities, right? You need to have capabilities that allow you to understand what is PII data, what is sensitive data, what is PCI data, payment-related financial information, and classify it. And once you're able to understand and classify that, okay, this data store or this stream has this information, this log line has this information, now you then are able to understand what to do with it based on your requirement, right? So if you're regulated, for example, then you don't want that data leaving India, and therefore you might be able to write a rule that says drop this data. Whereas even if you're not regulated, by the way, and this is actually becoming privacy is becoming a big uh, topic of discussion in the India market, right? So even in the unregulated industries, you might still want to mask this, put access layers and control on it, and make sure that there's encryption at rest as well as in motion, right? Right. The second piece is okay, great, but there is still a requirement, and there's still a big push to have data centers in India and control and legislation which is evolving all the time in India around residency and control and privacy. And I would say that's a medium term conversation for Datadog. We are definitely evaluating it, and we are continuing to invest significantly in India, and this is uh, part of our midterm plans.
Good to know that. And Namit, thanks so much for your time to kind of take us through the whole Datadog's plans. How do you see the India market and what kind of development activity happening in the observability market? And also how you're building AI into your tools and how the platform is developing with that. And finally, on the data localization part, it's been a pleasure connecting with you and getting to know a lot of things. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Really appreciate the opportunity. And I just wanted to kind of take a minute and end by saying that, Datadog is one of those technologies that kind of sit behind a lot of services that uh, you and I use actually. It's just that you don't know it, right? So let me give you some examples. When you order your favorite biryani on India's leading food delivery app, it's a service managed by Datadog. When you play games, stream movies, and shows on some of India's largest OTT platforms, a lot of them are running on Datadog. You can book tickets and do web check-in on, some of India's leading airlines, and those services are again managed by Datadog. So whether you're buying insurance, stocks, medicines, groceries, jewelry, accessories, a lot of these products and services are actually managed by Datadog. So Datadog is in more places than you currently know. I just kind of call that out.
Right.
Thank you, John. Appreciate the
You're welcome. It was wonderful speaking to you, Namit, and all the very best.